Florence, a city of quiet beauty where ancient stone whispers tales of forgotten empires. But within the imposing walls of the Palazzo Pitti, history did not merely whisper. It roared with the cacophony of 1,000 feasts, the clinking of gold against crystal, the murmur of 1,000 hungry mouths, and the silent screams of 1,000 roasted birds. Imagine a time when rulers flaunted power not with armies, but with mountains of sugar and rivers of wine. The Grand Dukes of Tuscany, the mighty Medici, once held sway over vast swathes of Italy, and they ensured their banquets were not just meals but declarations of dominion, spectacles of wealth so profound they beggars belief. These were not mere gatherings, they were elaborate ballets of opulence, choreographed demonstrations of an empire's might. Forget anything you think you know about luxury. Prepare for the true meaning of excess, served on platters of gold and silver. Here are the 7 most lavish banquets ever thrown within the hallowed halls of the Palazzo Pitti, events that redefined indulgence and etched themselves into the very stones of Florence. Number 1, the Feast of the Golden Peach, a celebration of the last Medici. The air in the Pitti Palace on that crisp, late autumn evening in 1729 was heavy with a bittersweet perfume. It was the scent of fading glory, mingled with the potent aroma of exotic spices and roasted game. Grand Duchess Anna Maria Luisa de' Medici, the last direct heir of the venerable Medici dynasty, was hosting a banquet. A defiant flourish, a final spectacular performance for a family whose power was irrevocably waning. The occasion was ostensibly a celebration of some minor diplomatic success, but everyone present understood the true purpose, a desperate attempt to reaffirm the Medici's enduring majesty, to remind the world, and perhaps themselves, that their star, though dimming, had not yet fully set. The Sala di Giove, or the Jupiter Room, was transformed. Its ground frescoes depicting the life of Jupiter seemed to gleam with a renewed vigor under the glow of hundreds of beeswax candles, each one meticulously placed in glittering chandeliers and ornate wall sconces. Sunlight was long gone, replaced by the flickering warmth that cast dramatic shadows across the mythological scenes on the ceiling. Venetian mirrors, framed in gilded wood, reflected the light, creating an illusion of boundless space and infinite shimmer. And Persian carpets, thick and soft underfoot, absorbed the sounds of rustling silks and hushed conversations, creating an intimate, almost sacred hush, despite the considerable number of guests. Tables fashioned from dark, polished hardwoods were arranged in a grand U-shape, stretching the length of the enormous room. Each place setting was a testament to Medici extravagance plates of pure gold, embossed with the family's coat of arms, nestled atop layers of the finest Florentine lace. Goblets of rock crystal so thin they seemed to hum with fragility stood beside intricate silver cutlery, each piece a miniature work of art. The Grand Duchess herself, though in her 60s, radiated a quiet dignity. Her gown, a deep burgundy velvet embroidered with silver threads, seemed to absorb the candlelight, making her appear almost regal in her stoicism. She moved with a measured grace, a living embodiment of centuries of aristocratic tradition. Her guests, a mix of Florentine nobility, dwindling foreign ambassadors, and a few close confidantes, were equally resplendent. Their silks rustled, their jewels caught the light, and their powdered wigs emitted a faint, sweet scent of their own. There was a palpable sense of melancholia beneath the festive facade, a shared knowledge that this era, this dynasty, was drawing to a close. The meal began with delicate consoms, served in tiny porcelain cups, infused with saffron and wild herbs gathered from the Medici villas in the countryside. Then came the antipasti, a seemingly endless parade of small, exquisite dishes. There were shimmering platters of cured meats, thinly sliced prosciutto, and spiced sausages interspersed with bowls of briny olives and sweet preserved figs. And artichoke hearts, marinated in olive oil and lemon, lay beside delicate pastries, filled with a mixture of ricotta, cheese, and truffles, their earthy aroma filling the air. Small silver boats held glistening pools of sauces, each one a secret recipe passed down through generations of Medici chefs. The true spectacle began with the fish course. Whole-baked sturgeon, its skin glistening, was brought in on a massive silver platter, accompanied by a retinue of liveried servants. The fish was adorned with intricate designs fashioned from edible gold leaf and surrounded by miniature, edible sculptures of mermaids and sea creatures made from spun sugar. Flanking the sturgeon were platters of fresh oysters from the Adriatic, served on beds of crushed ice, alongside roasted sea bass stuffed with fennel and herbs, and delicate fried anchovies, crispy and salty. Each dish was presented with an almost theatrical flair, a momentary pause in conversation, as guests admired the artistry before diving into the feast. Then came the roasted meats, the true heart of any grand Italian banquet. A whole wild boar, hunted in the Grand Ducal Preserve, was carried in on a sturdy wooden board, its head adorned with a wreath of laurel leaves. Its skin was crisply roasted, and a rich dark gravy pooled around it. Beside it, a roasted peacock, its magnificent plumage carefully reattached to its cooked body, stood as a majestic centerpiece, a symbol of extreme wealth and power. This was not a dish to be eaten for sustenance alone, but for its sheer visual impact. Pheasants, partridges, and quails, each roasted to perfection and stuffed with aromatic breadcrumbs and chestnuts, filled other platters. Carvers, renowned for their skill, moved among the tables, expertly slicing precise portions onto the golden plates, ensuring every guest received a taste of each succulent offering. The aroma of roasting meat, mingled with the sweet perfume of herbs and spices, was intoxicating. The intermezzo, a brief pause before the sweet courses, featured a small ensemble of musicians playing Baroque pieces on lutes, harpsichords, and violins. Their melodies, haunting and beautiful, drifted through the room, providing a moment of calm reflection amidst the sensory overload. Servants discreetly cleared away the savory dishes, replacing them with fresh linens, and preparing for the sugary onslaught. The sweet courses were a grand finale, a true testament to the pastry chef's art. The piece de resistance was a towering sugar sculpture meticulously crafted to represent a golden peach split open to reveal a miniature edible garden within. Tiny marzipan flowers bloomed around spun sugar trees, and miniature candied fruits formed intricate pathways. This golden peach was not just a dessert, it was an architectural marvel. Surrounding it were dozens of other confectionery delights, candied fruits from the south, glistening with sugar syrup, delicate pastries filled with sweetened ricotta and lemon zest, chocolate torts, rich and dark, imported from distant lands, and bowls of fresh fruit, including grapes, pomegranates, and rare citrus varieties, each perfectly ripe. There were also sorbets flavored with rosewater and jasmine, served in chilled silver cups, providing a refreshing counterpoint to the richness of the other desserts. Wines flowed freely throughout the evening, starting with light, effervescent local whites, moving to robust Chianti reds, and concluding with sweet, amber dessert wines, each selected from the Grand Duke's private cellars. The wine, like the food, was an endless stream of liquid luxury. As the evening wore on, the conversation grew more animated, despite the underlying current of farewell. Guests discussed the latest fashions, the political intrigues of distant courts, and the beauty of the Grand Duchess's jewels. The Grand Duchess herself, though perhaps weary, maintained her composure, observing her guests, her gaze distant, as if already seen beyond the palace walls to a future where her family's name would echo only in history books. The Feast of the Golden Peach was a magnificent, melancholic swan song, a final, brilliant flash of Medici glory before the inevitable darkness descended. It was a banquet of unparalleled beauty, a testament to a dying lineage's desperate clinging to its legacy. Number 2, the Medici Lorraine wedding extravaganza for Ferdinando I and Christina of Lorraine in 1589. The year was 1589, and Florence buzzed with an electrifying anticipation. Grand Duke Ferdinando I of Medici, who had once been a cardinal in Rome, had traded his ecclesiastical robes for a ducal crown and was about to marry Christina of Lorraine, a French princess, bringing a significant new alliance to Tuscany. The wedding celebrations were designed to be an unparalleled spectacle, not just for the citizens of Florence, but for all of Europe. Every detail was meticulously planned to showcase Medici wealth, power, and their unparalleled patronage of the arts. The banquet at Palazzo Pitti was to be the crowning glory of these festivities, a feast so grand it would be spoken of for generations. The grand courtyard of the Palazzo Pitti, normally a vast, open space, was transformed into an enchanted grotto for the occasion. Temporary structures fashioned from trellises, draped with living vines and exotic flowers, created a verdant, almost magical atmosphere. The fountains, specially constructed for the event, spouted scented water into illuminated basins, their gentle murmur blending with the distant strains of music. The scent of orange blossoms, mixed with the damp earth and fresh greenery, filled the air, a stark contrast to the usual stone and marble. Beneath a massive canopy of shimmering silk, dozens of tables were arranged in geometric patterns, capable of seating hundreds of guests. Each table was laden with the finest Florentine linens, embroidered with gold thread. In gold and silver plates, each a masterwork of the city's renowned goldsmiths, gleamed under the soft glow of thousands of lanterns and torches that hung from the trellises and filled every corner. In Venetian glass goblets, intricately etched with scenes of mythological creatures, caught the light, refracting it into sparkling rainbows. The cutlery, too, was crafted from pure silver, each piece a small sculpture in its own right. The guests began to arrive as dusk settled, a parade of European royalty, high nobility, and influential diplomats. Duchess Christina, radiant in a gown of white satin, embroidered with pearls and diamonds, was escorted by her new husband Ferdinando, who was resplendent in a ducal suit of deep crimson velvet, adorned with precious jewels. Their presence immediately lent an air of solemn majesty to the joyous proceedings. The courtyard filled with the rustle of silks, the murmur of polite conversation, and the soft clinking of jewels. The banquet began with a flourish of trumpets from a hidden balcony. The first course, a series of elaborate appetizers, was served by a veritable army of liveried servants, moving with synchronized precision. There were delicate vol au vents filled with creamy seafood ragouts, miniature quiches studded with wild mushrooms, and silver platters heaped with fresh garden salads, dressed with the finest olive oil and balsamic vinegar. Each dish was a small explosion of flavor, designed to awaken the palate. Then came the procession of roasted meats, a truly awe-inspiring sight. Whole roasted oxen, their skin glistening with herbs and spices, were carried in on enormous wooden biers, requiring multiple servants to manage their weight. Beside them, entire deer, hunted in the Grand Ducal preserves, lay majestically, their antlers still attached. A row of roasted swans, their white feathers carefully preserved and reattached to their cooked bodies, stretched across one table, a bizarre and beautiful display of culinary art. Each bird and beast was meticulously prepared, stuffed with aromatic fillings of truffles, foie gras, and exotic spices. Carvers, clad in white aprons and brandishing sharp, gleaming knives, moved with practiced ease, expertly portioning out slices onto the waiting golden plates. The rich aroma of roasted meat, savory and complex, filled the enormous courtyard. Accompanying these grand roasts were dozens of side dishes: golden pyramids of saffron, infused rice, steaming platters of vegetables simmered in butter and herbs, and delicate asparagus tips dressed with Parmesan cheese. Loaves of freshly baked bread, some plain, some studded with olives or nuts, were piled high in woven baskets. Sauces rich and savory, infused with wine, and various reductions were poured generously from silver pitchers. The entertainment during the banquet was as elaborate as the food. Between courses, the guests were treated to a series of intermezzi, theatrical performances staged on temporary platforms erected around the courtyard. Mythological scenes unfolded, featuring singers with voices like liquid gold, dancers clad in fantastical costumes, and acrobats performing dizzying feats. One particularly memorable intermezzo involved a mock sea battle staged in a large, specially constructed basin in the center of the courtyard, complete with miniature ships and jets of water. Another featured A procession of allegorical figures representing virtues and the arts, showering the bride and groom with flowers. The air filled with the sounds of lutes, flutes, and trumpets, blending with the laughter and murmurs of the awestruck guests. The sweet courses were a grand finale of sugar and artistry. The most magnificent creation was a multi-tiered sugar fortress, complete with battlements, towers, and tiny flags. It was so detailed that one could almost imagine miniature armies clashing upon its sugary walls. Around this central marvel, dozens of other confections beckoned. There were marzipan sculptures of mythological figures and exotic animals, each one painted with edible dyes. Candied fruits, some imported from as far away as the Middle East, gleamed like jewels in large silver bowls. Pastries filled with sweet creams and fruit compotes were arranged in elaborate patterns. And of course there was the famous Florentine panfort, a dense, spiced fruitcake served in thin slices alongside sweet muscat wines. Throughout the evening, fountains of wine, both red and white, flowed from specially designed spouts, allowing guests to refill their crystal goblets at will. Servants circulated constantly, ensuring no glass was ever empty. The sheer abundance of food and drink was astonishing, a clear message of Medici prosperity. As the night deepened, hundreds of torches cast a warm, flickering glow across the courtyard, illuminating the faces of the joyous guests. The air was thick with the scent of flowers, roasted meat, and the sweet perfume of wine. The Medici-Lorraine wedding banquet was more than just a meal. It was a grand performance, a living tableau of power and artistry, cementing Ferdinando and Christina's union and reinforcing the Medici's position as one of Europe's foremost ruling families. It was a feast that truly celebrated the boundless ambition and artistic genius of the Florentine court. Number 3. A diplomatic display for Emperor Charles V's representatives under Cosimo, the first dei Medici. The year was 1559, and Grand Duke Cosimo, the first dei Medici, was at the zenith of his power. Having consolidated his rule over Tuscany and crushed all opposition, he sought to cement his position on the European stage. The arrival of Emperor Charles V's esteemed representatives, though not the emperor himself, for a crucial diplomatic summit was an opportunity Cosimo could not afford to squander. This was not merely a meeting of minds, it was a battle of wills, where every gesture, every detail, every meal was a carefully orchestrated move in the grand game of power. The banquet held at the Palazzo Pitti was to be a dazzling demonstration of Medici sovereignty and unmatched wealth, designed to leave the imperial envoys utterly awestruck and in no doubt of Florence's rising importance. The Sala di Apollo, one of the grandest rooms in the Pitti, was meticulously prepared. Its frescoes depicting scenes from the life of Apollo seemed to shimmer under the soft, diffused light of hundreds of candles, their flames dancing in the meticulously polished brass sconces. The air was fragrant, with the subtle scent of fresh flowers, roses, jasmine, and lilies artfully arranged in massive silver urns and delicate porcelain vases throughout the room. The long, majestic table, crafted from a single slab of rare, dark marble, stretched across the entire length of the hall, capable of seating 50 of the most important personages. Each place setting was a deliberate statement of luxury. Plates of solid gold, etched with the Medici crest, rested on layers of finest damask linen, interwoven with silver threads. Goblets fashioned from rock crystal, some intricately carved with hunting scenes, reflected the candlelight like faceted jewels. The cutlery, too, was made of silver and gold, each handle a tiny sculpture. At the head of the table, Cosimo I, a figure of imposing dignity and shrewd intelligence, sat beside his formidable consort, Eleonora di Toledo, whose Spanish elegance added another layer of sophistication to the Florentine court. Their presence alone was a statement of power and lineage. The meal commenced with delicate broth infused with saffron and wild herbs, served in miniature golden bowls. This was followed by a variety of antipasti presented on silver trays, each a small work of art. There were thinly sliced venison carpaccio adorned with capers and parmesan shavings. Miniature pastry tarts filled with a rich pat of quail and truffles released an earthy aroma. Fresh figs, plump and purple, were wrapped in delicate slices of prosciutto, their sweetness a perfect counterpoint to the savory meat. Pickled vegetables, vibrant in color, were arranged in intricate patterns, showcasing the chef's attention to detail. The fish course arrived with a ceremonial flourish. 2 enormous silver platters, each carried by 4 strong servants, bore whole roasted lampreys, an ancient delicacy, their scales shimmering with olive oil and herbs. These were accompanied by baked salmon, stuffed with wild rice and spices, and delicate fried whitebait, crispy and light. A rich, creamy lobster bisque, served in individual silver tureens, filled the air with its decadent aroma. The freshness and quality of the seafood, despite Florence's inland location, spoke volumes of Cosimo's logistical prowess and access to the finest ingredients from across his domains and beyond. Then came the grand parade of roasted meats, the true heart of the banquet. A whole roasted boar, its skin burnished to a deep crisp, was brought in on a massive wooden bier, its tusks polished to a fearsome gleam. Beside it, several perfectly roasted capons and pheasants, their golden brown skins glistening, were arranged artfully. A special delicacy, roasted larks, tiny and exquisitely flavored, were presented on beds of wild greens. But the centerpiece of the meat course was a roasted camel, specially acquired from North Africa. Its exotic presence, a stunning declaration of Cosimo's reach, and the boundless resources at his command. It was a clear, unambiguous signal of Medici power. Carvers renowned throughout Italy for their skill moved among the tables, wielding long, gleaming knives, expertly slicing portions onto the golden plates, ensuring each guest received a taste of every exotic offering. Accompanying the meats were a myriad of side dishes. Tall, sculpted pyramids of saffron-infused rice, studded with pistachios and candied peel, adorned the table. Steaming bowls of various vegetables, asparagus, artichokes, and tender young peas, simmered in butter and herbs, added vibrant color to the spread. Freshly baked breads, some plain, some enriched with cheese or dried fruits, were piled high in woven baskets. A selection of rich, dark sauces, slow-cooked with wine and rare spices, were poured generously from silver pitchers by attentive servants. Throughout the meal, a small ensemble of court musicians played soft, captivating melodies on lutes, viols, and harpsichords from a hidden gallery, creating an atmosphere of refined elegance. Their music was a subtle backdrop to the conversations, never intrusive, always enhancing the sense of occasion. Dancers, dressed in elaborate costumes, performed graceful movements in a cleared space near the head of the table. Their performances timed to the courses, providing brief, enchanting intermezzi. The sweet courses were a final flourish of opulence. The piece de resistance was an elaborate sugar sculpture depicting the Medici coat of arms, supported by 2 rearing lions, all rendered in exquisite detail. This confection was surrounded by a bewildering array of other desserts. There were platters of candied fruits, some imported from the distant Levant, glistening under the candlelight. Delicate pastries, filled with sweet ricotta and infused with lemon zest, were arranged in intricate patterns. The rich chocolate torts, made with the finest cocoa from the New World, offered a taste of exotic luxury. Bowls of fresh fruits, including pomegranates, grapes, and rare citrus varieties, were perfectly ripe and arranged in vibrant displays. Small, chilled cups of sorbet, flavored with rosewater and jasmine, offered a refreshing contrast to the richness of the other sweets. Wines flowed freely throughout the evening, starting with crisp, local whites, moving to robust Tuscan reds from the Medici vineyards, and concluding with sweet, aromatic dessert wines. Each wine was carefully chosen from the Grand Ducal cellars, a testament to the family's discerning taste and vast resources. The sheer volume of wine consumed was staggering, adding to the jovial atmosphere. As the evening drew to a close, the imperial envoys, though seasoned travelers and accustomed to royal extravagance, were visibly impressed. The banquet had been more than a meal. It had been a masterclass in diplomacy through spectacle, a clear statement of Medici power, sophistication, and their growing influence on the European stage. Cosimo I had left no doubt that Florence, under his rule, was a force to be reckoned with, a place where wealth and artistry converged to create an unforgettable experience. The echoes of that extraordinary feast would undoubtedly resonate in the imperial court for years to come. Number 4. The Carnival Banquet of Fantastical Beasts under Cosimo II de' Medici in 1610. The carnival in Florence was always a time of joyous abandon, a period when the usual strictures of society loosened, and the city indulged in revelry before the solemnity of Lent. In 1610, Grand Duke Cosimo II de' Medici, a cultured and somewhat melancholic ruler, decided to host a carnival banquet at the Palazzo Pitti that would transcend all previous celebrations. It was to be a fantastical journey, a feast where the line between reality and illusion blurred, filled with exoticism and playful excess, designed to delight and astonish his court and invited guests. The main dining hall, typically reserved for more formal affairs, was transformed into an otherworldly menagerie. The walls were draped with rich tapestries depicting mythical creatures and exotic landscapes, creating an immersive environment. Instead of the usual rigid tables, a meandering serpentine table covered in shimmering green silk snaked its way through the room, adorned with moss, ferns, and clusters of wild flowers, giving the impression of dining in an enchanted forest. Overhead, hundreds of lanterns shaped like glowing fireflies hung from the ceiling, casting a soft ethereal light. The air was filled with the scent of pine, wild herbs, and the subtle perfume of incense. Guests arrived in elaborate costumes embodying various fantastical creatures, mythological figures, or allegorical representations. There were figures disguised as satyrs with horns and hooves, dryads adorned with leaves and flowers, and masked revelers in shimmering silks, their faces hidden behind grotesque or beautiful visages. Cosimo II himself, in a rare moment of levity, was said to have worn a simple, yet elegant, mask of a golden owl, observing his court with a quiet amusement. The atmosphere was one of joyful chaos, refined merriment, and a pervasive sense of delightful escapism. The banquet began not with formal courses, but with a series of whimsical, interactive food stations dotted along the winding table. Servants, themselves dressed as forest sprites and mythical beasts, presented dishes that were as much art as sustenance. There were enormous dragon eggs made of spun sugar, which, when cracked open, revealed delicate candied fruits. Miniature griffin claws were fashioned from roasted fowl, delicately seasoned and presented on beds of wild rice. There were unicorn horns made of twisted pastries filled with sweet almond cream. The main dishes continued the fantastical theme. A gigantic sea monster was brought in, fashioned from several expertly roasted fish, joined together to create a serpentine form, its scales shimmering with edible silver dust. Its eyes were made of large green olives. Flanking it were whole roasted, suckling pigs, meticulously prepared to resemble mythical beasts, their skins scored and browned to perfection, each one decorated with edible flowers and herbs. Platters of Sirens hair pasta, dyed vibrant colors with natural vegetable dyes, were tossed with exotic spices and a rich, creamy sauce. The wild game, sourced from the Tuscan forests, including venison and wild boar, were served in the guise of forest spirits, their meat tender and succulent. One of the most talked about dishes was a series of phoenix eggs, large, hollowed-out gourds filled with a rich, spiced custard and baked until golden. When opened, steam gently wafted out, adding to the theatricality. Each dish was presented with a narrative, a small story told by the server, adding to the immersive experience. Beyond the main savory courses, there were countless smaller, more unusual offerings. Bowls of nectar of the gods, a sparkling, fruit-infused wine, flowed from elaborate spigots fashioned like gargoyles. Elixir of life cordials, made from rare herbs and flowers, were offered in tiny jewel-toned glasses. There were jeweled salads composed of vibrant edible flowers, exotic fruits, and colorful vegetables, each ingredient chosen for its visual appeal as much as its taste. The entertainment for the carnival banquet was a continuous, flowing spectacle. Wandering minstrels, dressed as woodland creatures, played haunting melodies on lutes and flutes, their music weaving through the general hum of conversation. Acrobats, clad in shimmering, scale-like costumes, performed dazzling feats of agility and strength, twirling and leaping from hidden platforms. Commedia dell'arte troupes, with their distinctive masks and rapid-fire wit, improvised comedic scenes among the tables, drawing peals of laughter from the guests. There were also living statues disguised as mythological figures who would suddenly come to life, striking poses or reciting short poems, startling and delighting the revelers. The highlight of the evening was a series of masques, short theatrical performances that incorporated singing, dancing, and elaborate stage machinery. One masque featured a depiction of a magical forest coming to life, with mechanical trees that moved and flowers that bloomed at the touch of a hidden lever. Another showcased a benevolent dragon whose eyes glowed with light, breathing harmless puffs of scented smoke. The costumes for these performances were incredibly elaborate, adorned with feathers, jewels, and intricate embroidery. The sweet courses were a grand crescendo of sugary fantasy. A colossal Mount Olympus was constructed entirely of marzipan and spun sugar, with miniature gods and goddesses posed on its peaks. From its summit, a continuous stream of melted chocolate flowed into a basin below, where guests could dip fresh fruits and pastries. There were mermaid scales made of shimmering, multicolored fruit jellies, and fairy dust made of finely ground edible gold and silver, sprinkled over delicate tarts. Miniature treasure chests made of chocolate were filled with candied gems and rare sweets. Wines from the Grand Duke's private vineyards, some infused with exotic fruits and spices, flowed endlessly. The atmosphere grew more joyous and unrestrained as the night progressed. The air was thick with laughter, music, and the intoxicating aroma of roasted meats and sweet confections. The carnival banquet of fantastical beasts was a testament to Cosimo, the second's desire to create a world of wonder within his palace, a brief magical escape from the realities of court life. It was a feast that celebrated imagination excess and the sheer delight of pure, unadulterated fantasy. Number 5. The Boboli Gardens, Fete and Aquatic Feast, for Medici, heir's christening. The air on this bright summer day in 1573, within the sprawling, verdant expanse of the Boboli Gardens, was alive with the joyous clamor of 1,000 voices, the bright trill of trumpets, and the gentle splash of water. The occasion was the christening of a new Medici heir, a son born to Grand Duke Francesco I and his wife Giovanna d'Austria. This was more than a family celebration. It was a public declaration of dynastic continuity, a grand spectacle orchestrated to reassure the Florentine populace and impress visiting dignitaries with the enduring strength and prosperity of the Medici line. The banquet, set amidst the newly completed marvels of the Boboli Gardens, was designed to intertwine the bounty of nature with the height of human artistry, culminating in a magnificent aquatic display. Temporary pavilions, draped in shimmering silks of green and gold, were erected amidst the carefully sculpted hedges and ancient trees of the gardens, offering shade and elegance. Their long tables, fashioned from polished wood, stretched in serpentine patterns, their surfaces covered in crisp white linen, embroidered with intricate floral designs. Instead of indoor chandeliers, garlands of fresh flowers and hanging baskets of fragrant herbs adorned the space, perfuming the air with their natural scents. The gentle splash of water from nearby fountains provided a soothing soundtrack, mingling with the laughter and conversation of the hundreds of assembled guests. At each setting, plates of finest Florentine ceramic, hand-painted with scenes of classical mythology and delicate botanical motifs, nestled beside goblets of clear Venetian glass, each one a testament to the skill of the artisans. Silver cutlery gleaming under the bright Tuscan sun completed the elegant ensemble. Grand Duke Francesco I, a man known for his love of science and the arts, presided over the event with a dignified air, his gaze sweeping over the scene with quiet satisfaction. Duchess Giovanna, radiant in a gown of light blue silk, held the infant heir, swaddled in finest lace, for all to see. The meal began with a series of refreshing, light courses perfectly suited to the summer weather. Chilled fruit soups, made from ripe peaches and apricots, were served in delicate porcelain cups. These were followed by platters of thinly sliced cold, roasted meats, venison, and pheasant rock filled, artfully arranged with fresh garden greens and edible flowers. Bowls of glistening, jewel-toned fruits picked that very morning from the Medici orchards included plump cherries, succulent berries, and golden plums, their sweetness a delightful burst of flavor. The main courses were brought forth with a dramatic procession. Servants, clad in light linen uniforms adorned with laurel wreaths, carried enormous platters laden with whole roasted suckling pigs, their skin crackling and golden, each one crowned with a wreath of herbs. These were accompanied by plump roasted capons and tender quail, their meat infused with garlic and rosemary. But the true star of the savory course was the abundance of fresh, cold water fish, a nod to the aquatic theme of the gardens. Large platters of poached trout, caught from the clear streams of the Apennines, were served with delicate lemon butter sauces. Baked pike, stuffed with wild rice and herbs, was presented on beds of watercress, their silvery skins gleaming under the sun. Side dishes were equally plentiful and meticulously prepared. Vibrant green salads, bursting with fresh herbs and edible flowers, were dressed with the finest olive oil. Dishes of freshly harvested vegetables, lightly steamed and seasoned, reflected the bounty of the Tuscan countryside. Baskets of crusty, artisanal breads, some plain, some studded with olives or nuts, were replenished constantly. Wines, chilled to perfection, flowed from ornate pitchers ranging from crisp local whites to light fruity reds, each one a testament to the Grand Duke's private vineyards. The highlight of the fete and the main entertainment was the activation of the Boboli Garden's spectacular fountains and water features, many of which had only recently been completed or were being showcased for the first time. As the meal progressed, with a flourish of trumpets, the hidden mechanisms were engaged. The water jets, some soaring dozens of feet into the air, began to dance and intertwine, creating shimmering archways and cascades. The Grotto of Buontalenti, with its intricate stalactites and allegorical sculptures, was revealed to the delight of the guests, who were invited to stroll through its cool, damp passages. A particular spectacle was the Fountain of Neptune, where the colossal statue of the sea god seemed to preside over the entire event, streams of water gushing from his trident. Near it, a specially constructed aquatic stage was set up. Here, costumed performers, dressed as sea nymphs, tritons, and mythological figures, emerged from the water, performing elaborate dances and musical pieces. Singers, with powerful voices, serenaded the guests, their melodies echoing across the gardens. A mock sea battle was even staged in a large temporary basin, with miniature, remote-controlled ships firing harmless jets of water at each other, much to the amusement of the onlookers. The sweet courses were a grand finale of confectionery artistry. The centerpiece was a monumental sugar sculpture depicting a mythological sea god, perhaps Neptune, surrounded by frolicking mermaids and fish, all rendered in exquisite detail, some even spraying tiny jets of scented water from hidden mechanisms. This edible masterpiece was flanked by dozens of other sugary delights. There were platters of candied fruits, shimmering with sugar syrup, arranged in intricate patterns, and delicate pastries filled with sweet ricotta cheese and infused with orange blossom water offered a taste of Florentine tradition. The rich chocolate cakes, made with the finest cocoa from the New World, provided a decadent treat. Bowls of fresh summer fruits, including grapes, figs, and melons, were perfectly ripe and arranged in vibrant displays. Small, chilled cups of sorbet, flavored with rose water and jasmine, offered a refreshing contrast to the richness of the other sweets. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the manicured lawns, the golden light infused the gardens with a magical glow. The sounds of laughter, music, and the constant, soothing murmur of water created an atmosphere of pure enchantment. The Boboli Gardens Fete was a triumphant success, a grand celebration that seamlessly blended the natural beauty of the gardens with the refined luxury of the Medici court. It was a clear statement of dynastic strength and an unforgettable demonstration of Florentine ingenuity and artistic prowess, a feast that served not just the body, but the very soul of the Medici Empire. Number 6. The Grand Coronation Feast of Cosimo, the first and Eleonora di Toledo in 1537. The year 1537 marked a pivotal moment in Florentine history. Cosimo, the first de' Medici, though young, had successfully navigated the turbulent political waters following the assassination of Alessandro de' Medici, emerging as the new Duke of Florence. His coronation, alongside his formidable wife, Eleonora di Toledo, daughter of the Viceroy of Naples, was not merely a ceremony but a calculated assertion of power, a declaration of a new era of Medici rule. The coronation banquet at Palazzo Pitti was to be a powerful visual and sensory manifestation of this ascendancy, designed to impress every noble diplomat and citizen who witnessed it, etching the new ducal couple into the annals of Florentine greatness. The Sala di Marte, or the Mars Room, was chosen for this momentous occasion. Its imposing frescoes depicting military scenes and allegories of victory seemed to pulse with a martial energy, fitting for a duke who had swiftly consolidated his power. The room was transformed with an unprecedented display of gold, silver, and precious tapestries. The walls were hung with rare Flemish tapestries depicting heroic Roman legends, their rich colors adding depth and grandeur. Hundreds of beeswax candles held aloft in glittering chandeliers and ornate candelabras cast a warm, golden light across the scene, making every surface shimmer. The immense table, fashioned from dark, polished oak, was laid with the finest crimson velvet, embroidered with the Medici coat of arms in gold thread. Plates of pure gold, embossed with elaborate classical designs, stood at each setting, accompanied by crystal goblets, so clear they seemed to disappear in the light. The cutlery was solid silver, each piece intricately carved. At the head of the table, Cosimo I, resplendent in his ducal robes, sat beside Eleonora, whose Spanish elegance and quiet strength added immense gravitas to the nascent ducal court. Their presence alone was a statement of their combined power and ambition. The banquet began with a flourish of trumpets and the precise march of liveried servants. The first course, a series of delicate consomme infused with game fowl and rich herbs, was served in miniature golden bowls, warming the guests from within. This was followed by an array of antipasti, presented on vast silver platters. There were thinly sliced prosciutto, cured for months in the Tuscan hills, served alongside fresh figs and sweet melon. Delicate pastries filled with creamy ricotta and spinach, seasoned with nutmeg, offered a taste of local tradition. Platters of marinated artichoke hearts and roasted peppers, vibrant in color and flavor, added a burst of freshness. The fish course arrived with a ceremonial precision that bordered on military exactitude. Whole roasted sea bass, glistening with olive oil and herbs, were brought in on enormous silver platters, their scales still shimmering. These were accompanied by plump, roasted trout, stuffed with fennel and herbs, and delicate fried anchovies, crispy and salty. But the true marvel was a dish of roasted lampreys, an ancient and highly prized delicacy, meticulously prepared and presented on a bed of saffron-infused rice. The sheer quantity and variety of fresh seafood, despite Florence's inland location, was a clear demonstration of the Grand Duke's logistical prowess and access to the finest ingredients from across his domains and beyond. Then came the grand procession of roasted meats, the undisputed highlight of any Renaissance banquet. A whole wild boar, hunted in the Grand Ducal Preserve, was carried in on a massive wooden bier, its head adorned with a wreath of laurel leaves, its skin crisply roasted to a deep mahogany. Beside it, several perfectly roasted capons and pheasants, their golden brown skins glistening, were arranged artfully. A special delicacy, roasted larks, tiny and exquisitely flavored, were presented on beds of wild greens. But the centerpiece of the meat course was a roasted peacock, its magnificent plumage carefully reattached to its cooked body, standing as a majestic symbol of extreme wealth and power. This was not a dish to be eaten for sustenance alone, but for its sheer visual and symbolic impact. The carvers, renowned throughout Italy for their skill, moved among the tables, wielding long, gleaming knives, expertly slicing portions onto the golden plates, ensuring every guest received a taste of each succulent offering. Accompanying the meats were a myriad of side dishes. Tall, sculpted pyramids of saffron-infused rice, studded with pistachios and candied peel, adorned the table. Steaming bowls of various vegetables, asparagus, artichokes, and tender young peas, simmered in butter and herbs, added vibrant color to the spread. Freshly baked breads, some plain, some enriched with cheese or dried fruits, were piled high in woven baskets. A selection of rich, dark sauces, slow-cooked with wine and rare spices, were poured generously from silver pitchers by attentive servants. Throughout the meal, a small ensemble of court musicians played soft, captivating melodies on lutes, viols, and harpsichords from a hidden gallery, creating an atmosphere of refined elegance. Their music was a subtle backdrop to the conversations, never intrusive, always enhancing the sense of occasion. Dancers, dressed in elaborate costumes depicting mythological figures, performed graceful movements in a cleared space near the head of the table, their performances timed to the courses, providing brief, enchanting intermezzi. The sweet courses were a final flourish of opulence and artistic mastery. The piece de resistance was an elaborate sugar sculpture, meticulously crafted to represent the Medici coat of arms, supported by two rearing lions, all rendered in exquisite detail. This confection was surrounded by a bewildering array of other desserts. There were platters of candied fruits, some imported from the distant Levant, glistening under the candlelight. Delicate pastries filled with sweet ricotta and infused with lemon zest were arranged in intricate patterns. Rich chocolate torts, made with the finest cocoa from the New World, offered a taste of exotic luxury. Their bowls of fresh fruits, including pomegranates, grapes, and rare citrus varieties, were perfectly ripe and arranged in vibrant displays. Small, chilled cups of sorbet, flavored with rosewater and jasmine, offered a refreshing contrast to the richness of the other sweets. Wines flowed freely throughout the evening, starting with crisp, local whites, moving to robust Tuscan reds from the Medici vineyards, and concluding with sweet, aromatic dessert wines. Each wine was carefully chosen from the grand ducal cellars, a testament to the family's discerning taste and vast resources. The sheer volume of wine consumed was staggering, adding to the jovial atmosphere. As the evening drew to a close, the guests, having witnessed such a magnificent display of power and luxury, departed in awe. The coronation banquet had been more than a meal. It had been a masterclass in diplomacy through spectacle, a clear statement of Medici power, sophistication, and their growing influence on the European stage. Cosimo I had left. No doubt that Florence, under his rule, was a force to be reckoned with, a place where wealth and artistry converged to create an unforgettable experience. The echoes of that extraordinary feast would undoubtedly resonate in courts across Europe for years to come. Number 7. The Nuptial Feast of Francesco, the first de Medici and Giovanna d'Austria in 1565. The year 1565 was a watershed moment for Florence and the Medici dynasty. The long-anticipated marriage of Francesco I de' Medici, son of Grand Duke Cosimo I, to Giovanna d'Austria, the Archduchess of Austria and sister of the Holy Roman Emperor, was a political coup. It promised to elevate the Medici to the highest ranks of European royalty. The celebrations, stretching over weeks, were designed to be the most extravagant Florence had ever witnessed, a lavish demonstration of Medici wealth, power, and cultural supremacy. The nuptial banquet at Palazzo Pitti was to be the centerpiece of this grand spectacle, a feast of legendary proportions that would forever be etched into the memory of all who attended. The vast Salone di Cinquecento, though not strictly within the Pitti, was the intended venue for the largest portion of the initial feast, but many events, including the reception and subsequent smaller, more intimate banquets, spilled over into the Palazzo Pitti itself, which was rapidly being expanded for the ducal residence. For this specific description, we imagine a key elaborate banquet in the Grand Duke's private chambers, or a newly finished hall within the Pitti that was meant to impress the highest echelons of the visiting imperial court after the main Salon event. Let us place it in the newly finished Sala di Ercole, or the Hercules Room, reflecting the strength and power of the new union. The Hercules Room was transformed into a realm of dazzling splendor. Its soaring ceilings, adorned with frescoes depicting the labors of Hercules, seemed to echo the monumental effort that went into preparing this feast. The walls were draped with tapestries woven with gold and silver threads, depicting allegories of love and fidelity. Thousands of beeswax candles in colossal silver candelabras and shimmering chandeliers cast a brilliant, warm glow, illuminating every intricate detail. The air was thick with the scent of lilies, jasmine, and exotic spices carried on the soft breeze from the open windows overlooking the nascent Boboli gardens. The tables, immense and made of rare, dark woods, were arranged in a grand, symmetrical pattern, covered with the finest Venetian lace tablecloths. Each place setting was an individual masterpiece plates of solid gold, intricately engraved with the Medici and Austrian Habsburg coats of arms, rested on layers of silken damask. Goblets of rock crystal, some adorned with precious gems, shimmered with reflected light. The cutlery, made of pure silver, was embossed with delicate floral patterns. At the head of the main table sat the newlywed couple, Francesco and Giovanna, radiating a mixture of solemnity and nascent joy, surrounded by the most powerful nobles and diplomats of Europe. The banquet began with a flourish of trumpets and the solemn procession of servants. The first course, a series of exquisite consommes infused with pheasant and rare herbs, was served in tiny gilded porcelain cups. These were followed by an array of antipasti that seemed endless in its variety and richness. Platters of thinly sliced aged prosciutto, adorned with delicate gold leaf, were served with sweet, fresh melon. Miniature pastry cases filled with a rich pâté of quail and truffles emitted an intoxicating earthy aroma. Fresh oysters, brought from the Adriatic by swift relays, were served on beds of crushed ice, accompanied by various piquant sauces. Marinated artichoke hearts, vibrant green and tender, lay beside exquisite vegetable terrines. The fish course was a spectacular display of culinary artistry. 2 enormous silver platters, each carried by 4 liveried servants, bore whole roasted lampreys, an ancient delicacy, their scales glistening with olive oil and herbs. These were accompanied by massive baked salmon, stuffed with wild rice and spices, and delicate fried whitebait, crispy and light. But the crowning glory was a whole roasted dolphin, a rare and highly symbolic dish, its smooth, dark skin burnished to perfection, presented as a majestic centerpiece, a testament to the Grand Duke's vast resources and command over the seas. Rich, creamy lobster bisque, served in individual silver tureens, filled the air with its decadent aroma. Then came the grand parade of roasted meats, the true heart of the banquet, and a display of almost barbaric opulence. A whole roasted camel, specially acquired from the distant Middle East, was carried in on a massive wooden bier, its exotic presence a stunning declaration of Medici reach and the boundless resources at their command. Beside it, several perfectly roasted capons and pheasants, their golden brown skins glistening, were arranged artfully. A special delicacy, roasted larks, tiny and exquisitely flavored, were presented on beds of wild greens. But the centerpiece of the meat course was a roasted peacock, its magnificent plumage carefully reattached to its cooked body, standing as a majestic symbol of extreme wealth and power. This was not a dish to be eaten for sustenance alone, but for its sheer visual and symbolic impact. Carvers renowned throughout Italy for their skill moved among the tables, wielding long, gleaming knives, expertly slicing portions onto the golden plates, ensuring every guest received a taste of each succulent offering. Accompanying the meats were a myriad of side dishes. Tall, sculpted pyramids of saffron-infused rice, studded with pistachios and candied peel, adorned the table. Steaming bowls of various vegetables, asparagus, artichokes, and tender young peas, simmered in butter and herbs, added vibrant color to the spread. Freshly baked breads, some plain, some enriched with cheese or dried fruits, were piled high in woven baskets. A selection of rich, dark sauces, slow cooked with wine and rare spices, were poured generously from silver pitchers by attentive servants. Throughout the meal, a small ensemble of court musicians played soft, captivating melodies on lutes, viols, and harpsichords from a hidden gallery, creating an atmosphere of refined elegance. Their music was a subtle backdrop to the conversations, never intrusive, always enhancing the sense of occasion. Our dancers, dressed in elaborate costumes depicting mythological figures and allegories of love, performed graceful movements in a cleared space near the head of the table, their performances timed to the courses, providing brief, enchanting intermezzi. As a particular highlight was a ballet in which dancers mimed the story of Cupid and Psyche, their movements fluid and captivating. The suite courses were a grand finale of unparalleled confectionery artistry. The piece de resistance was an elaborate sugar sculpture, meticulously crafted to represent a vast, multi-tiered castle, complete with miniature battlements, towers, and flags, all made of spun sugar and marzipan. From its highest tower, a fountain of rosewater flowed into a basin below, filling the air with its delicate fragrance. This confection was surrounded by a bewildering array of other desserts, and there were platters of candied fruits, some imported from the distant Levant, glistening under the candlelight. Delicate pastries filled with sweet ricotta and infused with lemon zest were arranged in intricate patterns. Rich chocolate torts, made with the finest cocoa from the New World, offered a taste of exotic luxury. Bowls of fresh fruits, including pomegranates, grapes, and rare citrus varieties, were perfectly ripe and arranged in vibrant displays. Small chilled cups of sorbet, flavored with rosewater and jasmine, offered a refreshing contrast to the richness of the other sweets. Wines flowed freely throughout the evening, starting with crisp, local whites, moving to robust Tuscan reds from the Medici vineyards, and concluding with sweet, aromatic dessert wines. Each wine was carefully chosen from the Grand Ducal cellars, a testament to the family's discerning taste and vast resources. The sheer volume of wine consumed was staggering, adding to the jovial atmosphere. As the evening drew to a close, the guests, having witnessed such a magnificent display of power and luxury, departed in awe. The nuptial banquet had been more than a meal. It had been a master class in diplomacy through spectacle, a clear statement of Medici power, sophistication, and their growing influence on the European stage. Francesco and Giovanna's marriage was solidified, not just by vows, but by an unforgettable feast that radiated an almost unimaginable level of wealth and cultural dominance, cementing the Medici's place among Europe's most formidable dynasties.